Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Darrell Owens, and we're back for another episode of One on One here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network, and of course, airing on the amazing Bowie Television. This is episode 192, week 14 of the NFL season, the last bye week of the NFL season. After this week, there'll be no more byes, and we will have all the teams playing up until the end of the regular season. And then, of course, we get into the playoffs. But there is a lot to get into. We got the bottom. We got the outside looking in. We've got the top 10, the finale, all that good stuff. And tonight, we've got the Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys in Detroit. The Lions coming off a tough loss on Thanksgiving. The Cowboys coming off of a great win on Thanksgiving against the defending AFC champions. So a lot in stake tonight for both teams because this matchup will prove critical depending on who can win it. Especially if you're trying to make a playoff push for that 7 seed, maybe that 6 seed in the NFC. This matchup is huge. Both teams cannot afford to lose this matchup. This is basically a playoff game tonight. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Episode 192 of 101 starts now. One, 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 one. One, 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 one. Welcome to the 101. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to the 101. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to One on One at Legacy Maker Sports Network. Yeah, your boy's back. Episode 192, 8 away from the 200 episode of One on One, which we will probably hit somewhere mid playoffs, probably divisional round. I think I'm not 100% on that. We got week 14. See, week 15 to be 93, week 16 to be 94, week 17 to be 95, week 18 would be 96. So wild card 97, divisional 98. NFC Championship game again. Well, look at that. The Super Bowl episode will be our 200 episode. So, preview episode. So, I think that's the way it may tally out unless your boy decided to do an extra episode between now and then. But what perfect timing then to have the Super Bowl preview be our 200 episode of One on One. And I could be off on that calculation, but we shall find out here in the next couple of weeks. Now, tonight, we talked about Lions and Cowboys, big matchup. We got a lot of good NFL matchups coming up this weekend. A lot of critical matchups as the playoff push continues for a lot of teams. Some teams are trying to solidify some spots. So we got a big matchup in the NFC North where the Packers take on the Bears. That's a big one because the Bears are leading the division. The Packers need a win to reclaim the division lead, but these two teams face off twice in the next 3 weeks. The Packers have Bears, Broncos, Bears. So that's a tough little stretch, for Green Bay. Heading into the final couple of weeks there of the NFL season. So we shall see. Now, let's go ahead and get this party started. It's time to start it the right way with the bottom. All right, bottom, ladies and gentlemen, for week number 14. Let's start off with the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee. It's been a rough year for the Tennessee Titans. I'll be honest with you. I'm not even sure how they got the one victory they got. I think they beat the Cardinals in that crazy game, and that's the one win that they have. As you know, the Cardinals are also in the bottom. So this Tennessee team still rebuilding. I'm not going to trash them too much. Not like the way I did the Saints leading into the season. When you just don't have it, you don't have it. Cam Ward has potential. I'm really intrigued to see what they do to build this team in the offseason. Tennessee's at 32. At 31, the New York Football Giants. I said it last week, and I'll say it again this week. Yeah, they did lose not too pretty to the New England Patriots, who are coming back off of their bye. Oh no, excuse me, they're on the bye this week, but they were coming back as they continue their hot streak. The Patriots have won 10 straight games, and the Giants happened to be a victim this past Monday night. But this Giants team at times, and I've said it, they should be more like 6-6, 7-5. Probably more around like the 7-7. Like they should be in the playoff mix. They lost a couple of rough games, and they just couldn't finish games. They had Denver on the ropes. They should have beat Denver. That didn't happen. They've had a couple teams, and they beat the Eagles. Yes, division opponent or not, they beat the Eagles. It just feels like they should be in a better position, but I digress. At number 30, the Vegas Raiders. This team is just as bad as the Titans, and they got 2 wins. But the crazy thing is, one of the Raiders' victories against the Patriots, a team that's been number 1 on this power ranking. The Raiders have a win against the Patriots, and their other win against Tennessee. So they're at the minimum the second worst team in the league. I got the Giants at 31. You got 11 losses, man. You got to take the L where you are. But Vegas is another team where I'm intrigued to see where they go. It looks like there's no real future ahead. You got a coach that's 73, 74 years old. Geno Smith, it looked like he took like a big steps back, especially those couple of years he had in Seattle where he was cooking. And now it just seems like he's taking a huge step back. They don't have an offensive line, so that could be a part of it. Genty looks like he could be really good, and in a personal opinion, but that he just doesn't have the line, and it took him a while for them to realize, hey, don't take my stance away. They tried to change his stance, and it just didn't work. And when they got back to it, these things got a little bit better. He's run hard this season, so I'm gonna give him credit. I still think he's going to be a good back in the league if they can figure out the offensive line. At 29, the New Orleans Saints. Whew. Look, the Saints proved me wrong. I think I had the Saints either going 2-15. Was it still on pace for that? Or I think I had them 1-16. I had to go back and check the records for that. But it's just not good, I mean, you see this team and you just say, man, boy, oh boy, right? It's just hard to watch at times. But the Saints have fought hard. Like even in this Dolphins game this past week, they were in that game. Like they had chances at the end to try to take the lead, and then I want to remember correctly, but I believe there was a pick six on the 2-point conversion where they had a chance to tie the game. It was 19-17, and they threw a pick six for the rare 2-point conversion pick six that gives the other team 2 points. So then the Dolphins end up winning that 121-17. The Saints have competed. So I do want to apologize to Saints fans and the Saints as a whole, because they have competed this year. And they just haven't been able to win the games. They don't have all the talent all the way around. Alvin Kamara's been hurt all year. You got Olave. He's great. Taysom Hill. They got pieces. It just ain't working. At 28, the New York Football Jets. So proud of the Jets, man. Nice win for the Jets against the Falcons. Nick Foles, who's 187 years old, kicks a field goal with time expiring to give the Jets their 3rd win of the season. And I was so happy for Aaron Glenn. There's not a lot of coaches that I just root for no matter what. There's something about Aaron Glenn that I just want to see the guy. I just want to see him, succeed. He's got a good vibe with him, and you can see it. And I just want to see that man succeed. So I hope that the Jets give this man time to figure it out. And I know in the NFL is not so long, not for long league or whatever you want to say. But I think you got to, personally, I would give him 3 years at least, at the minimum, to try to show that he's the right guy for the Jets. He's got the passion for it. You just got to give him time. At 27, the Browns. The Browns lost 26-8 to the 49ers in a game where they were competing. They were in the mix. Second half, 49ers did what they needed to do. They scored 16 unanswered points in the second half. It was 10-8 going into halftime. And then, San Francisco did what they needed to do. Shedeur Sanders, 16 for 25, 1 touchdown, and 149 yards passing. It wasn't the prettiest, but he's still learning. It's week. This is the second week. He's got a chance to get his 2nd win of the season against, Cam Ward, a guy who got drafted ahead of him. So, he was number 1 overall. He got drafted ahead of everybody, but we'll see this matchup because these two have a friendly rivalry. So this will be fun to watch this week. The Browns are at 27. At 26, the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona, another team that's has had a lot of close games, or a lot of games that they were in the mix and they just couldn't pull it off. This game against the Buccaneers, same dream. They were in there, they had shots. Buccaneers had to hold on tight in order to win it. But, this Cardinals team has shown flashes. Jacoby Brissett, to me, is proven that he's not just a backup. He could be a starter in this league. He's shown it a couple of times. The question is, will somebody actually give him a chance to be a starter? I mean, he's getting that opportunity now, but I'm talking about from beginning of training camp all the way through. But shout out to Jacoby Brissett, NFL record for completions in a game with 47 a couple weeks ago, went 47 for 57. He's had a really good year since stepping in for Kyler Murray, who's been nursing injuries. At 25, the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders had their best game that they've had in a long time this season. They've lost 7 straight. I know they used to be 3-2. And when we were in LA for the Chargers game, they were 3-2. The spirits were high. And ever since that fumble in the Bears game the next week, things have just been downfall. But they had a really good game against Denver on Sunday, and they had chances. They just could not pull it off. They were there. They were this close. Couldn't pull it off. In overtime, Marcus Mariota, they decided, hey, let's go for 2 and try to win it. Mariota went to go throw it. Ball gets batted down. Denver wins. But it was a heck of a game, y'all. Heck of a game. At 24, the Minnesota Vikings. Whew. The Vikings have been a dumpster fire. Dumpster fire. The Seahawks beat them 26-0. Now, granted, no J.J. McCarthy. I don't know how much that would have helped. But Max Browser, who came in, the undrafted, I want to say he was an undrafted QB. Could be wrong on that. But he comes in, it was ugly. Justin Jefferson, the rumors are, highly upset. Can't even blame him. You spent all that money to stay in Minnesota, or you decide to sign that big contract in Minnesota, hoping that they had a vision at QB. There ain't no vision there right now. They better figure it out quick. Vikings at 24. At 23, the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta's made me so mad this season, I don't even want to talk too much about them. They've aggravated my spirit, and that's something that it's hard to do, but they've done it. They have aggravated my spirit. So I'm just not even going to pay attention to the old Falcons because they make me upset. At 22, the Cincinnati Bengals. Nice week for Cincinnati. Thanksgiving night, 8 o'clock game against division rival the Ravens. What do? They go in there and get the dub. A 32-14 win. And now all of a sudden, the Bengals look like, hey, they can do what they did last year. And it sucks that they have to start off so slow or these injuries or whatever hurts them, and they put themselves in a bad spot back against the wall and got to try to fight to get in the playoffs. It's like the 3rd or 4th season that this has happened in the last couple of years since they went to the Super Bowl. So now Joe Burrow comes back. They look like a completely different team, offensively and defensively. So we'll see if Joe Burrow returning will be enough to push the Bengals over the edge. They're 4-8. They're only 2 games back in that division, and they have a win against the Ravens. So we shall see. At 21, the Miami Dolphins. Shout out to the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins have had a little bit of a resurgence, ladies and gentlemen. The Dolphins started this season off miserable. I mean, absolutely miserable. We're talking about a 33-8 loss to the Colts. Then they lose to the Patriots. Then they lose to the Bills. Then they finally get a win against the Jets. They were 1-3, right? Things can't get worse. They lose to the Panthers. They're 1-4. They lose to the Chargers. They're 1-5. They lose to the Browns. They're 1-6. So now being 1-6, then, they get another win against the Falcons, who just whatever. So then they're 2-6. They lose to the Ravens. They're 2-7. From that time, they've been 2-7. 3 straight wins for the Dolphins. They beat the Bills. They beat the Commanders in Spain for the first game in Spain, and they beat the Saints. Now, the schedule continues to get reasonable for them. They have the Jets this week. They have the Steelers next week. That's a game they can win. Then they have the Bengals. That'll be a little shaky. They got the Buccaneers and the Patriots. So they've got a chance, if done right. They could be 7-7 heading into the last 3 games of the season with a chance to see if they can try to figure out the playoff run, right? Go figure, man. Mike McDaniel trying to save that job, brother. Trying to save that job. So here we go. The bottom. Titans, Giants, Raiders, Saints, Jets, Browns, Cardinals, Commanders, Vikings, Falcons, Bengals, and the Miami Dolphins rounding at the bottom at number 21. Man, tell you, the bottom has been very interesting. There's some teams that I'm sad that are in there, and there's some teams that I don't know. They got a chance to just try to make some moves, man. To see what the Dolphins could do. They'd have to win the next 5 to like have a real shot, in my opinion. But you never know. You never know. All right, now let's go ahead and see who is on the outside looking in. All right, outside looking in. At number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers. 6-6, a team that was 4-1. They were 4-1. Division lead, couple of game lead over pretty much everybody in the division. And now they're just fighting for their lives at this point. They're 6-6. So what's that? 2 and 5 in the last 7 games. I mean, they look terrible against Buffalo this past week. They look terrible against Buffalo. The Mike Tomlin chatter has cranked up like to 1,000. So Mike Tomlin's job either may be in jeopardy, but I have a feeling that they won't fire him per se. I think they will, talk to him, maybe work something out, maybe via trade. If not trade, I would say they would allow him to resign, one of those two, or move on. It's going to be something. I just can't see Pittsburgh foul. He's done so much for the franchise. Longest tenured coach, no losing seasons. I mean, that's got to amount for something. Some teams can't say that, but this guy's had a Hall of Fame career, despite how you may feel about him. So Pittsburgh 6-6, they're at number 20. At number 19, the Kansas City Chiefs 6-6. Tough loss to the Cowboys. Tough loss to the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Tough. And now Kansas City is in a position where they might not make the playoffs. Now, this guy here, very excited that that's the case. Nothing against Pat Mahomes, right? But if they get in that playoffs, they're going to Super Bowl. I don't care what anybody says. They get the playoffs, they're gonna find a way to get into that Super Bowl. This way, if they don't get in, it could be something new, something fresh. If they want to go back for it again next year, that's fine. But this year, I want something new. I want something fresh. We've had a lot of parity in the league. A lot of, it's really week to week. Anybody can win on any given Sunday, and it feels that way every single game. So, but if the Chiefs are in that playoffs, I promise you, they're going to find a way. At 18, the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's had a really up and down season. Baltimore, game 1 probably should have won against Buffalo. They were up by 15, lose the game. Then they go on this weird thing. They lose to the Lions. They just lose a couple teams. It's just rough. They were 1-5. Now, granted, they reversed that, and they've been 5-1, losing this game this past, this last Thursday against the Bengals. But they won 5 straight games leading that to get back to 500. And they're leading the division. So they're still in a solid spot, but the division's getting tighter. And they've got to figure some things out. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I might get the chance to cover Ravens and Patriots in week 17, I believe that would be. No, week 16. So that would be a really fun game to do against 2 potential playoff teams. Well, at this point, they look like they're going to the playoffs. But a potential playoff team in the Ravens and a team that looks like they got their eyes on a 1 seed in the Patriots. We shall see. At 18, we've got the Carolina Panthers, 7-6, a big win over the Rams. Nice win over the Rams. Surprising win over the Rams. But this Carolina team has a lot of fight. And if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not careful, the Carolina Panthers might win that division. That's how close that division has gotten between those 2 teams. It's going to be a fun ride to the end here between between the Buccaneers and the Panthers. Can't wait to see it. At 16, Tampa Bay get their win against the Cardinals, 20-17. Chris Godwin's back in the mix. There's talk that they've opened the window for Mike Evans, so that means Mike Evans could be returning here soon, which would be huge for your boy here because I got him in fantasy and I need Mike Evans, baby. I need Mike Evans. So we'll see if who's going to end up winning the NFC South, but I think it's going to be a dogfight between the Panthers and the Buccaneers the rest of the way. At 15, the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas have had a really weird season, but they're 6-5-1. They're in the playoff mix. They got a big game against Detroit tonight, so it's going to be a really, really fun ride for the Cowboys to end the season. They got better on defense, even after losing Micah. They're not better than they were with Micah, in my opinion, but they still, Quentin Williams coming in, the Logan Wilson coming in from Cincinnati, big moves like that. Watch out for this Cowboys team. I said it at the beginning of the season. I had the Cowboys going 7-10, but I kept saying I would not be surprised if Dallas surprises people this year. They're doing that. They're starting to do that now. The defense still needs some work, but they're starting to do that now. Pickens has been great. Lamb is back. Javonte Williams comes off. Great signing there, on the cheap, and he does great things for them. Watch out, Dallas. I mean, look, it's going to be a fight. This game tonight between them and Detroit won't be easy. At 14, a team that has dug themselves out of quite the hole. We got a couple teams that are on nice little win streaks. Houston has been one of those teams that have just been in the mix. Only one loss since week, and I want to make sure I get this right. So you have game 1 against the Rams, they lose. Game 2 against the Bucs, they lose. They lose to the Jaguars. They were 1-3, so kind of like the Dolphins. They were 1-3 heading into week 5. They beat the Ravens 44-10. All right, so that's a win. They lose to Seattle, so now they are 2-6. No, excuse me, 2-5. Right? Or no, 2-4. 2-4. I'm getting it all mixed up, y'all. 2-4. So they're 2-4 at this point. Then they beat the 49ers. They lose to the Broncos, and that's their last loss to the Broncos. Since then, they've beaten the Jaguars, the Titans, the Bills, and now the Colts. So 4 straight wins for the Texans, and I believe 5 out of their last 4, or 5 out of their last 6. Don't try to quote me on that, but it's in that mix. They've been on a nice little run here. They're 7-5. They got themselves in position that, hey, if the Colts slip or the Jaguars slip, they're putting themselves in play to win that division again. So watch out for the Texans. At 13, the Detroit Lions. Detroit's in a little bit of trouble. Why? Well, the Bears are 9-3. The Packers are 8-3-1. They've lost to the Packers twice. They have beaten the Bears, so that does help them out a little bit. But they've got to be careful because right now they're on the outside looking in of the playoffs, which is not something we all thought we would see, but they've had some struggles this year. Still trying to figure some things out. And that Green Bay game was rough for them because Green Bay, it's reminded me of the Green Bay Lions game from 2 years ago on Thanksgiving. Same vibe. Green Bay comes in, punches the Lions in the mouth, do what they need to do, and they win the game and probably have one of their best games of the season. That's the way it looked for me as a Packer enthusiast. And that same thing happened that season before the Packers were able to make a nice run heading towards the playoffs. So Detroit's got to find a way to stop the bleeding. They got a chance to do that tonight against Dallas. At 12, the San Diego Chargers, a.k.a. the L.A. Chargers. The Chargers. Now, the Chargers, I don't know. They're one of those teams to me that, on a week-to-week basis, you really never know what you're going to get out of them. A nice win against the Raiders this past week, 31-14, but they're playing the Raiders. So what does that really mean? But they feel like they're an 8-4 team, and it doesn't feel legit, if that makes sense. So I don't know what LA has to do to figure it out, but they better figure it out as they go down the stretch. They're 8-4. They're in the playoffs right now as a 5 seed in the AFC, so they're not too bad off. At 11, and the top of the outside looking in, the Indianapolis Colts. This Colts team was cooking. They were the number 1 team in our power rankings a couple times this year for the first time ever. And then slowly but surely, they were, 7-1? So in the last couple of weeks, they're 1-3. And they've they need a win. They need a win desperately this week. They need to find a way to get a dub. They do. And they got Jacksonville this week, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they got Jacksonville this week in Jacksonville, and they have a miserable record playing in Jacksonville. So they've got to get that monkey off their back and try to get a win and reestablish themselves as the division leaders in the AFC South. Here it is, outside looking in. Steelers, Chiefs, Ravens, Panthers, Buccaneers, Cowboys, Texans, Lions, Chargers, and at number 11, knocking on the door, trying to get back into the top 10, the Indianapolis Colts. Man, the outside looking in is always interesting. So many teams fighting for playoff spots, looking for opportunities to make the leap. It'll be very interesting to see who in that outside looking in finds a way into the top 10, one, and then or finds their way into the playoffs, because that's the most important thing. Getting into my top 10 means nothing, but getting into the playoffs means everything. So we're going to see if they can figure that out. With that being said, let's go ahead and find out who is in the top 10. Top 10, top 10, top 10. At number 10, the Philadelphia Eagles. The defending Super Bowl champions have had a little bit of a rocky road. Offensively, struggling offensively, and it shows. This team losing on the Black Friday game to the Chicago Bears 24-15 had Chicago looking like world beaters up in that bad boy. You hear me? And that's tough for me to say. But Philadelphia is still a good team. You're 8-4. They can win games. They just have to figure it out. They could be coasting right now just enough to make it into the playoffs, but they got to be careful because they lost to Dallas, and Dallas is creeping. Dallas is 6-5-1. They're a game and a half back of Philly. And with that win against Philly, or being able to split that series, they're in striking distance. So Philly has to be careful. I mean, truly has to be careful here in the next couple of weeks, not to let this lead slip away and let Dallas win. Now, they got a tough game on Monday night against the Chargers, so it won't be easy. It's a big game between two 8-4 teams. All I know is if you're Philly, you cannot let Dallas creep back in it. You just can't. And so you just got to watch out. We'll see. Dallas is knocking on the doorstep. At number 9, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have taken the lead in the AFC South, I believe, for the first time this season after last game and getting themselves a nice little win. Jacksonville is a team that I had making it into the playoffs at the beginning of the season as a 7 seed. But right now, they're sitting pretty at the 3 seed. So, but a lot can change. And that could all change this week if they lose to the Colts. But there's a lot can change here. And it's going to get real intense the next couple of weeks here on this show. And, of course, going, at these NFL games in the next, we got week 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, next 5 weeks. So 5 games, it's going to get real intense. At number 8, the Buffalo Bills. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what to make of the Buffalo Bills. Because, yes, nice win against Pittsburgh. But sometimes they win games. You're like, yeah, that's a Super Bowl winning team. Then there's sometimes they'll lose games. You be like, man, what was that? That's just been Buffalo. I mean, they got beat up by the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like mouth wide open, shocked. So, and I've said this to a few people of mine. If you're Buffalo or even the Ravens, those two teams in particular, if the Chiefs don't get in the playoffs and you guys can't find a way to win the Super Bowl or at least get to the Super Bowl, somebody might get fired. Because there's no excuse that Patrick Mahomes is in your way. Yes, granted, there are going to be some other great teams in there, but you got to find a way to get to the Super Bowl. If those Chiefs don't get in, if you're the Ravens and the Bills, one of y'all got to get in. It's been too many years where you guys have been right there at the top, haven't been able to figure it out. I'm just saying. At number 7, the San Francisco 49ers. Tough win against the Browns. I like that they're getting healthy at the right time. Brandon Ayuk should be back here soon, potentially. I heard that they may be getting close on that, maybe before the end of the season. I don't know. But they're 9-4. They got a bye this week, but they're 9-4, and they had to fight hard. They had to fight really hard to get where they are. Like, there's a shout out to San Francisco. They had to fight to get here. Like, fight. Brock Purdy's doing his thing. On the comeback, Mac Jones, who came in and did an amazing job while Purdy was hurt, and once again, San Francisco just sitting there knocking on the door. Hey, winning that division is not out of the realm of possibility. You got 3 teams with 9 wins. This is reminding me a lot of the NFC North from last year. I remember in the beginning of the season, I remember talking about this NFC West and how good it could be. Or, it wouldn't surprise me who wins that division because it's just going to be a close race. Now, obviously, the Cardinals are, what they're having the season that they're having, but somebody had to lose the games. And unfortunately, it's the Cardinals. But the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers are in the mix. They're all in the top 10. So, granted, San Francisco's at 7. At number 6, the Green Bay Packers. I am a Packer enthusiast. Nice win for the Packers against Detroit. That's the team that I want to see the rest of the season. You give me that Green Bay Packer team against Detroit in the second half of Pittsburgh for the rest of the season, this team goes to the Super Bowl. That's just how I feel about it. They have the talent. Maybe I should say they have the talent to get to the Super Bowl, and people wouldn't be shocked if they played the way they played against Detroit and in the way they played in the second half. That defense came alive. Jordan Love taking care of the football, not making any crazy mistakes. The receivers making big plays. Watson with a big catch. Wicks had 2 touchdowns. It's just like that's what they need. Those guys have to step up now. Dobbs, all those guys just got to do their thing. So we'll see. Packers at 6. At number 5, another team that's been hot, the Seattle Seahawks. 26-0 victory over the Vikings. Jackson Smith-Njigba's been doing his thing out there, leading the league in receiving yards. He's fastly or closely approaching the 2,000-yard receiving yard mark, which has never been done by a receiver. That including the amazing Jerry Rice. That's amazing, especially if he can get it, before the 17th game or something like that. It would be amazing. So, shout out to Seattle. Sam Darnold's got those boys cooking. They're going to be a problem. The playoffs are going to be fun this year in the NFC. They're going to be a problem. At number 4, the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, and the crew doing their thing. Big win over Philadelphia. Did something Green Bay couldn't do this year, and that's beat the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a nice win for Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears, and that makes this game against Green Bay at 4 o'clock on Sunday just massive for both. If you're the Packers, you need this win to retake the lead in the North. If you're the Bears, this gives you a chance to open your lead up just a little bit, but it could be just enough to get you through, especially with the Packers taking on the Broncos next week and then having to take on the Bears again. If you're the Packers, worst case scenario, you split with the Bears. You have to do that. But if you're the Bears, you want to go for the sweep. The Packers have had your number for so long, so you got to try to go for the jugular. Bears are at number 4. Shout out to the Chicago Bears. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. At number 3, the Los Angeles Rams. Rams were knocking on the door, becoming the number 1 team on this power ranking. To me, they're still they're the best team in the NFC, even with the Bears being, currently number 1. I still like the Rams overall. Great coaching, great young defense with a good mix of veterans, guys like Cam Curl, that they got from Washington, another young guy that they have that it's maybe not a veteran, but he's doing great things. And Emmanuel Forbes, you got Kobe Turner, Jared Verse. They just got a really good young defense. Tough week this past week against, with Carolina, but nevertheless, the Rams are still tough. At number 2, the Denver Broncos. Broncos, got to see them in person. It's something about that team I can't quite put my finger on yet. Are they really this good, or have they just been squeaking by? Their defense is legit. Can the offense help them push through and maybe get the Broncos to a Super Bowl? They're 10-2. They're cooking. And number 1, for another week, the New England Patriots, 11-2, 10 straight wins. 10 straight wins for them, 9 straight wins for the Broncos. This has been a nice little run. If the Patriots and the Broncos go to the AFC Championship game, that'll be a nice little rematch from back in the day. So it will be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out. But there it is. There's our top 10. Eagles, Jaguars, Bills, 49ers, Packers, Seahawks, Bears, Rams, Broncos, and last but not least, the number 1 team for another week, the New England Patriots. All right, y'all. There it is. Power rankings locked and loaded, ready to go. Now we got to finish up this episode the way we always finish up these episodes, and that's with the finale. All right, let's get it started first with the Kings of the Gridiron for week number 13. At QB, the offensive side, this is his second of the season. Jordan Love, 18 for 30, 234 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no picks, QBR of 124.2. Great week for Jordan Love. And once again, taking care of the football and making sure that he can lead this team to victory in a big prime time situation for Green Bay on Thanksgiving Day. I think that now makes Jordan Love 3-0 on Thanksgiving, 2 wins against the Lions and 1 against the Dolphins. So shout out to, Thursday Thursday night football Green Bay Packers. They look good. They look good. Or Thursday football Packers, whatever. So heading on the defensive side, coming from the Seattle Seahawks, and I've had a chance to see this young man play this year. Ernest Jones, the fourth, 12 tackles, 2 picks, and a touchdown against Minnesota in that 26-0 victory. Look, this matchup in the playoffs could be a fun one. The NFC is just going to be a fun playoff, just hands down. So just prepare yourself. But those are our Kings of the Gridiron for week number 13, Jordan Love and Ernest Jones, the fourth. Now, let's head on over to our MVP candidates. Same as last week, in my opinion. Stafford's number 1 despite the 2 picks. May is on the cusp of potentially passing him, but I still want to give it to Stafford because he's just been so doggone good. Myles Garrett, who's inching closer and closer to the sack record. He got another sack this past week, so I think that puts him at 19. I mean, he's been amazing. So what do you do to stop the amazing, the ever so dangerous Myles Garrett? So he's only I think he's 4.5 sacks away from the record. We'll see. Then Jonathan Taylor, who's had such a great year leading up to this last week or so, the Colts have to find a way to get him going again. He might slowly fade out of this, but he's been so good this season. It's hard for me to keep him completely out. And then last but not least, same as last week, we got Jackson Smith-Njigba, 1,300 yards receiving. He needs 664 more yards between now and the end of the season to get to the 2,000-yard mark. Now, one of my favorite parts of the show, if the playoffs started today, where would we stand? If the playoffs started today, the number 1 seed in the AFC, the New England Patriots, would have the bye chilling. One of the first round card matchups would be the number 2 seed Denver Broncos taking on the number 7 seed Buffalo Bills. That'll be a fun matchup. The number 3 seed Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the number 6 seed Indianapolis Colts. The number 4 seed Baltimore Ravens taking on the number 5 seed I'm going to say Cincinnati Bengals, but the number 5 seed San Diego, a.k.a. LA Chargers, which this will be a rematch from last year's playoff. Then we swing to the NFC in a shocker. We've had a couple teams rotate at the top in the NFC. The Rams were last week. The Eagles were the week before then. The Packers have had the lead in the NFC. And now the Chicago Bears, 9-3 Chicago Bears, sitting at the top of the NFC as the 1 seed. Number 2, the Rams. They would take on division rival, the San Francisco 49ers, in their wild card matchup if the playoffs started today. The number 3 seed Philadelphia Eagles would host the Green Bay Packers in a rematch of last year's playoff game, which there's a part of me that I just want to see the Packers get a home playoff game with Jordan Love at the helm. But so far, 0 for 2 in that realm. They have been to the playoffs the last 2 years, but they've also won to San Francisco and lost to the Eagles, and then they did get that win against Dallas. So 3-6 matchup would be an interesting one, and then a 4-5 matchup, which we've seen once this year, and it was a great game. But the Buccaneers, the 4 seed, would take on the number 5 seed Seattle Seahawks. Now, let's check out your boy record for the year, and I'm cooking 121-72, and I kind of wish they had a chance to do our Legacy Maker Pick'em this year. May bring it back again next year, but this year your boy took a break on it. But what a season I'm having, man. I've been cooking the last couple of weeks, 10+ wins, just working through some things, man. 11-4 in week 11, 10-4 in week 12, 10-6 last week, a little bit of rough, but still 121-72-1. What a season. I want to get to 200 wins. I don't think that'll happen, but I want to definitely surpass my 171 from last year. 50 more wins to tie that. Now, as of tonight, I've got the Detroit Lions winning 28-26 over the Dallas Cowboys, which should be a really fun, but like I said, competitive matchup with the circumstances on the line. Both of these teams are jockeying for that 7 seed in the NFC, and if they want a chance, they're going to have to fight hard for it. My 9-6 record on Thursday football this year, a little bit sad about that. Thanksgiving beat me up last week. I felt fully confident that I was going to leave out 11-4. It just didn't happen that way. 9-6 it is. Lastly, let's go ahead and tell you who I have this week. First, the bye this week. The teams on the bye. We got the Patriots, the 49ers, the Panthers, and the Giants. They're all at home resting up this week. And now for my winners. I have the Lions, the Ravens, the Commanders, who are traveling to Minnesota. My first time in Minnesota this week. Might go by Prince House. Will I be your lover? Anyway, Packers, Dolphins, Buccaneers, Jaguars, Browns, Seahawks, Bengals, Broncos, Rams, Texans, and last but not least, the defending Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. I just don't trust the Chargers. Sorry, can't do it. All right, everybody, that's it. Episode 192 of 101 is in the books. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in for another episode, and I cannot wait for the game tonight. Also, cannot wait to see how this week unfolds, because there's a lot of big matchups coming along this week. So just a few of the big matchups. Of course, tonight, Cowboys and Lions, a big one, and Pittsburgh and the Ravens. That's a big one for the AFC North. Then you got Colts and Jaguars. That's another big one. That's the AFC South big one. Somebody can take the division lead in that one. Then you have Bengals and Bills. Now, it may not look like it record-wise, but it's big for the Bengals because they're still in that mix. And then these two teams always have good games. And Joe Burrow's had the number, in my opinion, or at least it feels like he's had the number of Josh Allen. Then another big match, of course, Packers and Bears. That's going to be a 4:00 game. And then Chiefs and Texans for the Sunday night game, and then Eagles and Chargers on Monday night. So some really big matchups this week in the NFL. All right, everybody. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Make sure you go like, share, subscribe. You get an opportunity to go and check out the Legacy Maker Sports Network on all our social media platforms. Also, make sure you go check out Bowie Television. Make sure you check us out there as well. Really appreciate everybody who's been following Bowie TV, of course, and of course following the Legacy Maker Sports Network. We truly appreciate everybody for everything that they do. And everybody that comes out and gives us love. We're on the road to 2,000 on YouTube. We're probably about like 300 away, but we're pushing it. And so we appreciate everybody that's been giving us love. With that being said, once again, everybody, thank you all for tuning in. Episode 192 of the Legacy Maker Sports Network of 101 with your boy Darrell Owens here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network, and of course airing on the amazing Bowie TV. We will see you guys all next week as the countdown to the sexiest day of the year creeps up a little bit. When we come back next week, we'll be 4 days away from that, and I'll be close to a trip to New York as the Commanders take on the Giants next weekend. But that's next weekend, and we'll talk about episode 193 then. Until then, everyone have a great evening. Enjoy some football tonight. See you next week. One. Welcome to the 101. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof.